Susan is trying not to look at me.
Oh, hey, I didn't see you there.
Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, don't forget to hit the subscribe button so you're notified whenever I post a new video. My name is Silen. As you can see, I'm nicely dressed. I'm out in a function, but I decided to take the time out to record this video for you guys just because you're so dear to my heart and I love you all so much. Thank you all for subscribing. If you already have, if you haven't subscribed already, please hit the subscribe button. Thank you for liking this video just because it's going to be awesome, just because it's an awesome video. So as you can see, I'm putting on a corset dress. If you want to see a tutorial on how I make this dress, then let me know in the comment section down below. I'll be very happy to do a detailed tutorial on how I do it. Okay, so today I'm going to show you guys how to cut and sew a trouser for a jumpsuit, but you can use the same method to cut and sew a trouser, like a basic pant trouser. So if you want to see how I do this, then please keep watching.
I'm using 2 yards of fabric for this project. So the first thing I'm doing is I'm drawing just a random zero line where I'm going to start my markings from. So from that point, I'm marking 13 inches downwards, and this is where the crotch is going to be. Now, because it's a jumpsuit, that's why I'm marking 13 inches. If you're making a regular pants trouser, you can take 10 inches, 11 inches, depending on the hip of your client. But because it's a jumpsuit, I added extra 2 inches. And now I'm just marking the length of the trouser. I want it to be 45 inches long. It's a palazzo trouser, so the longer the better, so it gives that nice fitting. So I'm just basically extending that the dotted lines that I marked. That's basically what I'm doing now. And now I'm marking just another random line where I'm going to start measuring her lap measurement from. Now her lap is 29 inches, so I'm just dividing that measurement by 2. So I'm folding my tape into 2, and that is what I'm going to mark at that line. I'm placing it there, and then I'm just marking it there. Now this is a Lycra fabric, and it's stretchy, so you don't really need to add allowance, but I just added just 1 inch allowance to it, so that just because I love to add allowance. And now I just marked that line. There's no particular measurement for that line. I just try to go in from the point where I marked her lap measurement, so I try to make it a slanted line basically. And now I'm taking her shape measurement. Now because this is a jumpsuit, I'm taking her shape measurement. If this was a regular pant trouser, you take your waist measurement. So her shape measurement is 36 inches. I'm now dividing that by 4, so I'm folding my tape into 4, and that's what I'm marking at that point. And now I'm leaving 2 inches allowance, or actually I'm leaving 1.5 inch allowance, just because this material is stretchy and there will be no darts in the front part of the trouser. So I'm just drawing a curve from that line that I started marking for the lap to the shape line. Now I want the width, that's how wide the palazzo trouser to be, 10 inches wide. So I want the palazzo trouser, the down part, to be 10 inches wide, and that is what I'm marking now. So if you want to make a pencil trouser instead, you can use maybe 8 inches or less, or maybe 7 inches wide, just so that it's penciled. But if you want a palazzo trouser, you can take from 10 inches upwards, depending on what you really want. So I'm just drawing that line to meet the crotch line, and I'm doing the same thing on the other side, just making sure that it's a straight line all the way up to that line. And then when I get to the top of this other side, I'm just curving it a bit, right? It's easier to understand when you watch the process than actually hearing me talk. But then again, I'm aware that some of you are audio learners, so it's important that I actually explain what I'm doing. So for my visual learners, just try to concentrate on what I'm doing. So I'm just cutting out that line I traced out. And now having done that, this is the front bit, so I just folded my fabric again, and I'm taking that front bit and placing it on top of the fabric so I can cut out the back bits. Now I left an allowance at the crotch area just so that I can cut the back. Now I'm leaving 2 inches allowance at that side, at the crotch. I'm going to call this the crotch side where you have that pointy curve. Yeah, I'm going to call that the crotch side. So I'm leaving 2 inches allowance all the way. Then I'm marking that. So basically try to consider your own measurements or the measurement of the person you're trying to sew for when you're making this. But basically this is what I would do. So this is I'm leaving 1.5 inches allowance at the top side. So 1.5 inches allowance. That's basically like the sewing allowance. And also, you know, the back is bigger than the front, so that's what the allowance is for. Now I'm just drawing out that curve. I'm curving it out just for a start. Now I'm making sure that at that crotch side I have at least 3 inches all the way around that point. That would allow me to proceed with my cutting. So if you don't have up to 3 inches, try to make sure that you shift the front part of your fabric so that you have 3 inches at that crotch area for the back. Now I'm cutting that out. Now what I'm doing now is I'm folding that back bit to match the front bits. Okay, so I'm folding the back bits to match the front bits. This is important so you know where exactly that crotch point meets the back, right? So it's important so you know where the front of the crotch, that is front crotch part, meets the back. So that's what I've just marked now. So once I folded it, I got that point and I marked it down. Now it is not in a straight line. That is why it's important for you to fold the back. And you can see the 3 inches I marked before. You see that that point is not on a straight line with the front one. So I'm just curving that line. From that point, I'm just creating a curve to meet, you know, the part I cut out before. And I'm just cutting that out. And that's it for our trouser. Now before we go, I'm just going to reduce the waist of the front, just because, you know, you have bum, you have your bottom, your ass, which is big, so it takes a huge part of the back part. So I'm just reducing the front bits. Contrarily, you can actually increase the back waist side so that it actually fits, but me, I like to reduce the front just a bit so the back is higher than the front, so the back part of the waist is higher than the front. I hope that makes sense. Now moving on, we're going to cut the pockets now. I almost said pockets. We're going to cut the pockets now. So if you have like a lot of fabric, you can use your fabric, the fabric you're using to make your trouser, to actually do this. But I'm using a piece of lining simply because the fabric is just right for this trouser, so I can't afford to use the fabric for this pocket. However, I'm going to show you guys how you can blend your fabric with your lining to make it seem like you use your fabric to cut your pockets. So you saw the dimensions I used. Sorry I didn't mention them, but yeah, this is what the pocket looks like. Now this part I shaded. I marked 3.5 inches. That's the width, and the length is, just hold on for the length. Oops, I did not mention the length. Now the thing is, if you are confused, please rewind this video and just go check what I did. So I marked 4 inches for the fabric I'm going to be adding, and then I'm going to be sewing to that shaded portion. I just marked 4 inches width for that, just so that it's a little bit more than the shaded portion. Remember, the shaded portion is 3.5 inches. Now I'm marking 3 inches at the front of my trouser, that side where the hip is. Then I'm marking 6 inches downwards, so that's 3 inches width and 6 inches length. That is where my pocket is going to start and stop. So I'm just folding that part and ironing it down. Just ironing that part down. Now it's time to sew. I'm placing that piece of fabric I cut out. I'm just sewing it at that shaded portion on the, you know, the line I drew for the shaded portion. I'm just sewing it there. And what that would do is it would help me, it would actually make it look like I used the fabric for the entire pocket. Meanwhile, I use the fabric and the lining. So I'm just going to turn that over like I've done, and then I'm going to sew it down, following the shape of the actual pocket. Just following that curved line. Then when I'm done with that, I'm going to fold it and then place the front of the trouser, that part I ironed down. You remember that part I put a slit in and ironed down? I'm going to place that on the pocket. I'm going to mark where it meets the lining, and then I'll cut out that part I marked. And after cutting that part, I'm going to cut out that iron part. So you know when you iron, it gives a fold. So along that fold is that same slanted line. I'm going to cut that out, and then I'm going to sew the pockets with that side of the lining. So the two slants, I'm going to sew them together. So the lining and the pockets along that slanted line. Then I'm going to sew that down, cut out the thread, and then top stitch that. So I'm top stitching the allowance to the lining side so that it stays put and the lining doesn't come out. Cutting out that thread. Then I'm folding it right back to how it was when I started. And now I'm going to close up the pocket so that, you know, you don't want to have a hole in your pocket, obviously. So I'm going to close up the pocket now. But I'm doing it from inside so that when I turn out the pockets, the sewing is inside. It's not showing outside. But even if you end up doing it outside, maybe you make a mistake, you can always weave out the edges, like use a serger to weave out the edges. So when I turn it out, you can see that my pockets looks the stitches are actually inside and the outside is actually as neat as it can get. Look at that, guys. Beautiful. Now I'm going to flip it back over and then stitch the pockets at the top, at the waist part. Stitch it down to stitch it together with the rest of the trouser at the top. And I'll do the same thing with the other side. And having done that, the next thing I'm going to do, I'm just going to show you guys what it looks like. So when I bring out my pockets, it's nice and, you know, cute. And now that we're done sewing our pockets, we're going to move on to sewing the rest of the trouser. So I'm taking the back side. I've already put in my dots. I'm taking the back side. I'm then sewing it right sides facing. Now remember that I'm not sewing the crotch side. I'm sewing the side that has the hip part. Like, I don't know if that makes sense. So the side that has the crotch is by the left, but I'm sewing the side that is just the straight side, basically. So the side that has your hip and the waist, while the crotch area, I haven't sewn that yet. So I'll do the same thing for one side. I've done it for one side of the trouser. I'm doing it for the other side of the trouser. So like I said, I'm sewing that side, the waist and the hip side, not the crotch side. So I'm sewing it one piece of the front and one piece of the back, as long as they match. So when I place them right side facing, they actually match. And then I'm opening that up, and then I'm going to take the other piece. So I have two identical pieces now, but they are mirror images of each other. I'm going to place them right side facing, and now I'm going to join the crotch side together. I sincerely hope that makes sense. I'm really hoping on you to actually pay attention to what I'm doing. If you find anything confusing, please rewind the video and watch it again, because this is as explanatory as I can get. So I've sewn the crotch side together for one side, and then I'm going to flip it over and sew the other crotch side together. And then, having done that, now I'm going to take that point where I sewed before, and then I'm going to open it up, and you can see that your trouser has already formed, has already taken shape. And then I'm going to take that crotch side, and I'm going to join that part together. I'm trying to make sure that that crotch side, the seam allowances, when I open them up, they actually align. So I'm trying to make sure that the seam lines, they actually align, the front part and the back part align. So I'm placing that, and then I'm sewing it down, sewing each leg down. So this is the first leg part, and I'm sewing, and I'm going to sew the second part now. And that is what this video is basically, guys. So if you're making a trouser, you can go ahead and put in your band. If you don't know how to put a band, you can watch my how to make a skirt tutorial. I showed you how to cut a band and how to sew it on a skirt. You can do the same thing with a trouser. And then if you're making a jumpsuit, you can go ahead and attach this trouser to the top part of your jumpsuit. Thanks for watching, guys.